Chip and Dale, Rescue Ranger. Well, hey there, everybody. So yeah, today I actually want to talk about the new Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers movie that's on Disney Plus as we speak. Of course, if anybody follows my channel, they know I'm a huge fan of nostalgia and everything, and this movie has all the nostalgia and all the little cameos to a T. Before I get too much into this, I will say I am going to talk about a little bit of spoilers, so if you haven't seen this movie yet, go ahead and do so. I'm not going to tell you if I liked it or not, I'm just going to say watch it if you don't want to see the spoilers of this video here. So now that we've waited all for 5 seconds or so, I will say yes, I did love this movie. I thought it was fantastic. I think of it as like the new age Roger Rabbit, and here's what I mean by that. When you see Who Framed Roger Rabbit, you see all these different collective of different studios' characters all coming together and living in this like Hollywood sense. Like they live among us humans. They're in our normal everyday life. And I always thought it was really cool that it was a Touchstone film at the time, which was Disney, Who Framed Roger Rabbit is, and they had things from Warner Brothers, the rival studio, but they all came together because that's what was popular during the time of the setting of Roger Rabbit, which is the, I believe, 1940s or 50s, around that time. It's a love letter to the golden age of cartoons. And this kind of had that same feel, except it was things with the 80s and 90s and a little bit of the 2000s. It also plays on the trope of how everything keeps on getting rebooted, which is kind of funny because Disney's the #1 person that continuously does all these reboots, and I do kind of like that they poke fun of themselves for it. Like Baloo, for example, in the beginning where he's the CGI Jungle Book version, he's not played by Bill Murray in this movie, but he's that CGI version where Dale goes, oh, you know what, he got the reboot, he got, you know, his big success because he was on our Disney Afternoon just, you know, with Tailspin, and now look at him, now he's a big shot. It's literally playing off the trope of, look, these guys are rejuvenating their careers with a reboot because they're CGI and live action. I liked that idea. I could see, though, how some people don't like it on the fact because there are lots of people that don't like these reboots. They're not original ideas. I understand that portion because there are certain reboots that I look at, again, Disney makes a majority of them, that I'm like, no, this shouldn't have been touched, this shouldn't have rebooted, this shouldn't have been a reimagination or whatever the hell you want to call it. But what makes this film work is an aspect of forgottenness. Not just nostalgia, hey, I remember those things, hey, let's just bring it back, like we see in Comic Cons, which is a big setting of this movie. Oh, hey, I remember that guy, he played a small role in one of my favorite movies or TV shows, whatever. Yeah, let's just bring him back for something, or that character back for something. When a lot of times, lots of these shows are just completely forgotten behind from all the much more successful ones. And even the concept of bootlegs, because I know Disney's always been fearful and a hatred of like these Chinese bootleg movies that are like always just kind of similar to their movies and ideas, but not quite, and then they come out on DVD here, you'll see them in like the local red box and everything like that. You can look at it on one hand and say it's pretty funny that they're aware of these bootlegs and how much they dislike it, and they're kind of like, oh, look what these other companies are doing. But at the same time, other people can look at it and say, this is Disney. They're just so protective of their brand and their marking. So, these bootleg people are disgusting. So they're evil in our mind. But I also kind of think it's a little bold that they were able to take their own characters, their very famous characters, even somebody like Flounder, and just saying, hey, look, he was kind of like tortured in a weird sense, and made to make bootleg movies overseas. We think it's overseas, at least. I just like the overall story of this. The concept of having, taking these characters, moving them into either a bootleg because they're not good enough to be rebooted because they're basically cast-offs. They're castaways. They're no good anymore. What good are they? And I thought it was an interesting idea of how a character can continue getting work. It's something that isn't really touched on too much on Roger Rabbit, where they're just constantly, you know, in work because that's around the time, like I said, in the 40s and 50s, where they're constantly working. They are successful. It's what they're doing now. This is the story of what do they do after the fame. They're bored. They don't have anything else going for them. They have to get normal jobs like Chip selling real estate, and then Dale just trying to keep the dream alive of, hey, look, I can sign autographs. Like a lot of these actors and actresses do that are remembered for like a bit part, or they were famous from one TV show or one fan favorite cult following movie, and that's it. But they're cartoon characters. I think it's a fascinating idea. A few of the other things I do want to touch on, though, is number one, the voices of Chip and Dale, played by John Mulaney and Andy Samberg. I will say, when I first heard that they were the voices and everything, and I saw the trailer of them speaking, it did weird me out a little because it's Chip and Dale. You don't hear normal male voices coming out of the chipmunks of Chip and Dale. We've known them for so long, and ever since even their early cartoons, they've always had the high squeaky voice and everything. Yes, they make a play on it where they're putting on a voice for the TV show, they're acting, but it didn't sit right with me, at least at first. In the actual movie itself, I think it kind of worked because it helped with their emotions, because they are speaking like more so normal humans as opposed to the high-pitched voices. But then again, I'm sure we could have gotten some sort of emotion out of those high-pitched voices, maybe. We've had silly cartoon voices, even like Mickey Mouse, and even Goofy is a good example of somebody that has the silliest voice possible but can convey a big-time emotion in an animated setting. So why Chip and Dale couldn't be the same thing, I'm not exactly sure. But I did think that they did a good job, both Mulaney and Samberg did a good job voicing the two characters, and very important characters, obviously. They're the namesake of the whole entire movie. They got Eric Bana to voice Monterey Jack, which he sounds exactly like, I believe Jim Cummings played the original Monterey Jack, which is weird because they have Jim Cummings in this movie, but he didn't want to play Monterey Jack. And not to mention, like I said, he sounds just like him. Why wouldn't they just use the same voice actor? And Tress, of course, plays Gadget, and she still uses the same exact voice. So again, why did we change why did we change the voices of Chip and Dale when we literally have the same exact voices, granted a different actor, for Monterey Jack and Gadget? It doesn't make sense to me. I think it really is the aspect that they don't believe that the high-pitched voices of Chip and Dale could have conveyed the emotion that certain aspects of this movie had. So, I'll give them that. But overall, like I said, they did a good job. It was fine for what they were. I kind of wish that I would have seen the original voices more, because I think that would have made much more sense, because that's who Chip and Dale is to me. I will talk about the elephant in the room, which is Sweet Pete. Sweet Pete is the bad guy in the movie, where he's basically a grown-up Peter Pan who has the plot of doing all these bootleg movies because that's how he made a living, because Disney casted him in Peter Pan, he got older, he got cast aside, and now he makes bootlegs. If you don't know, the significance of that is Bobby Driscoll, who was the original voice of 1953's Peter Pan, something similar happened to him where he got older, his voice started to drop, and then he was no longer allowed to voice Peter Pan. So Disney basically cast him off and even blacklisted him from Hollywood, and he ended up getting addicted to drugs, and ultimately his life succumbed to that. It's a very sad situation. And so the fact that Disney kind of touches on it in this movie from something that is bad from their past, it's kind of a weird feeling. Part of me does like the aspect that Chip and Dale bring it up to him in the climax of the film, saying, we understand what it's like to be cast aside and forgotten, and nobody wants you around anymore. And that's kind of part of me wants to agree that that's a pretty decent way of saying, you know what, they're kind of apologizing, they shouldn't have done that, it's the way that they did in their past. Does it forgive Disney's past of doing what they did to Bobby Driscoll? Absolutely not. What they did was horrible. And they did this to a lot of people in the entertainment industry, I will say. I like Disney as a company here and there, but their past and even certain things that they do now are pretty shady. I don't know, maybe some other character would have worked better. I liked some ideas that I saw floating around the internet where they could have used, like, Pinocchio, where he became a real boy and he got older and he says, hey, you know what? You want to be a real boy? Guess what? Real boys grow up. I think that would have been a safer option. That would have been the nicer option, because this really is in your face if you really know the story of Bobby Driscoll and Peter Pan's situation. And so it kind of puts a sour taste in your mouth if you do know that story. Does it ruin the entire film for me? No, I do still say you should go and watch it, but there is an aspect that you kind of cringe when you do know that situation. And they could have gone further with the whole entire being forgotten speech thing that Chip and Dale give, because he doesn't really care for it. The guy's just evil, so he doesn't care about the little speech that they give. But it could have been, he could have had a redemption. It could have been a more sincere apology from this company, but it didn't get there. And that kind of bummed me out a little bit. I know I'm discussing a lot of these negative things about it, but there are positives. Like I said, I do enjoy the story for its creativity and how it views modern cartoons at work. But I also do love, the cash grab that is all of the cameos in the actual story itself. Again, just like Roger Rabbit, they have not only the cartoons from Disney itself, but they have all the characters from every single type of studio you can imagine. They had all of Seth Rogen's voice characters from DreamWorks characters like Bob from Monsters vs. Aliens, Mantis from Kung Fu Panda, obviously Disney live action Pumbaa that he was in. They had everybody. Ugly Sonic, who made it was kind of an important character near the end there, who is the Sonnet the Hedgehog character that basically the internet bullied the studio that he looked so terrible and ugly that they need to redesign the character of Sonnet the Hedgehog, which is the Sonic the Hedgehog movie that we have now. It was the old design where he has like terrible human teeth and everything. I think that's a cool way to utilize an unused character model. It's funny. I mean, they had so many. Randy Marsh was there in the bathhouse. How the heck could you get Randy from South Park in a Disney movie? It's hysterical. Is that cheap of Disney just to throw in all these characters to make you say, hey look, hey look, hey look? A little bit. But you know what? I loved it because, again, I still feel there was a little bit of love there, just like I did with Roger Rabbit. I know with Roger Rabbit lots of people have a softer spot for those types of characters because the classic Looney Tunes and the classic golden age of cartoons around Betty Boop, like I said, all the Looney Tunes, and Flowers and Trees and things like that from that classic era hold a special place in a lot of people's hearts. But again, for these ones from these cartoons from the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, they hold a special place for grown-ups like me now. And so, yeah, you could look at that as cheap, but I also look at it as fan service. I know all the Marvel movies do fan service, and it can be a little draining, but you know what? This one was for people that were in love with Saturday morning cartoons growing up. Not the golden age of cartoons watching Popeye, which I did that too, but people that watched Saturday morning cartoons to watch Tailspin, and Rescue Rangers, and Darkwing Duck, and the Mighty Ducks. That's one of my favorites. I loved watching those things, and this was a love letter to me, I felt like, and that's why it holds such a special meaning to me. This movie does. Is it my favorite movie ever? No, it's not my favorite Disney Plus movie I think I've even watched either. But I loved the fan service. I liked the story. I liked Rescue Rangers growing up. It wasn't my favorite Disney afternoon show, but you don't even have to be the biggest Rescue Rangers fan in order to watch it. You just, kind of enjoy the aspect of a story about a little mystery with two classic characters of Chip and Dale. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. I really did like it, but it's, like I said, it's not my favorite movie ever. And once I go deeper into details of, certain aspects that they could have done better with the voices, and even the Bobby Driscoll story is a little controversial in my personal opinion. They could have changed a few things there, but overall, it's a fun movie. Some of the little kids may not get a lot of the references, but I think they'll still be entertained. It's much more for people around my age that grew up with all of these characters from the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. Like I said, I just wanted to give my opinion on this and what I thought about all of it, because like I said, I did like it. But since you made it this far, I'm sure you've seen it, and tell me, did you like it? Did you think that they needed to change a few things, or did you think it was perfect the way it was? Let me know in the comments below. As always, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, or enemies, I guess, and subscribe to my channel for more movie reviews, animation reviews, and anything else I can come up with. Thanks, everybody!